Welcome back, everybody. This is
So,
Night Flight. I'm Judith Kwoba, and today we are here with Brian David Andersen. His website is Tri-Vortex.com, and we are going to dive into the world of subtle energies and how they can help us with our well-being and what we can do for our health. So I'm very excited to have him here, Brian. Welcome.
Very, very good to be here. Now, are you in Germany?
Yes.
Yes. So both my grandmothers were born in Germany, and they both migrated to New York. And then from Chicago to the state of Nebraska, they took covered wagons in the 1800s. And then my great-grandfather is from Germany. So I guess you can say 3/4 German. And then on my father's side, I'm Danish.
Okay.
So I guess I say this is 3/4 German.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that have German roots in the United States.
Very much so.
So, Brian, tell us a little bit how you ended up discovering and investigating the field of subtle energies. How did that happen?
I started out in my university studies were journalism. I was a photojournalism major. I was very much photographer, newspapers, that type of thing. And then I was one of the pioneers of underwater video. And so back in the 1980s, they had video cameras that they wanted to put underwater. Before that time, it was all film. And so I was the pioneer of putting video cameras underwater, what's called broadcast cameras. And so in 1988, I wanted to do a whole different type of change. I wanted to get into what's called structuring water and that type of thing. And I had this journalism background. And so I had a choice at that time, this is now around 1988, to either go back to school and do it in a traditional way or do it in a non-traditional way, which would be I would use my journalism skills and then to investigate various subjects such as chemistry, physics, various other things. And so I decided to go ahead and do my journalistic type of route where I called people up on the phone and I did an investigation. I wasn't going for a grade, so I had total freedom to do what I wanted to do. And the first products that came out that influenced me, they were drops that would go into water and they would make the water wetter or more structured. So my goal in the beginning was to come up with a technology where you wouldn't always have to go buy these liquids. And it turned out some of these liquids also they were basically soap. That's all they were. And a very high grade type of soap. But I wanted to do structured water. And so I came across a chemistry book dated in 1901 for doctors, dentists, and nurses. And they had taken the table of elements and put it on a spiral. And so I was then, as far as I know, the very first person to finish off the spiral. You can see that spiral chemical element table on the Tri-Vortex website at trivortex.com. That's trivortex.com. And so this all turned into harmonics and into what I also saw as geometry. And so I came up with a chamber that I used geometrics, and I also used sound, and I would put various things inside of there. And then when I would bring them out, I would put them underneath any type of water or whatever it is, a liquid of some sort, and it would change the taste. It would make the water wetter, softer. That type of thing was what's called sympathetic resonance. So when I put it in my materials, I created this chamber based upon the spiral of the chemical elements. And this chamber then would embed these types of frequencies, these energies. And then when you would put liquids near those energies, it would go what's called sympathetic resonance. is that the liquid then would go from its structure into more of the organized structure of what I had been treating. And so that's how basically it all started out. And it's gone far, far beyond anything that I ever could have imagined when I first started. This was again 1988. And the very first situation that I came across then was what's called the Tri-Vortex disc. Now, this is what goes into the chamber,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a 3-inch diameter disc. And all you do then is just set your liquids on top of it. You can also put this on the body because our bodies are liquids. And so many times pain is nothing more than disorganized liquid. And so you can also do this for pain. You can do it for liquids. You can do it anything you want to as far as for structuring. Some people also, they'll put this in their swimming pool and they can reduce their chemicals that they put in the pools. So there's various things. I had another certain gentleman, he attached it to his welding rod and he did a bead, a weld without the disc applied and then with it. And it turns out that the weld looked totally different and what's called the tensile strength was very much improved. So a lot of people have done experimentations with this disc, specifically in South Africa and Australia. And you can see the test results on the Tri-Vortex website. And we take 2 different types of plants and we would then put the disc under some water or treat the water. And then we'd have 2 different types of fields or planters. And then you can watch the difference in the water that's been treated and water that's not been treated. And it's amazing the difference between the growth of those plants. And what that also means, there's implication there, is that the chemical elements that are in the cells of animals, humans, and plants are all the same. That's hard to believe, but everything is all the same. It's all equal. The difference between animals, humans, and plants is the structure, is how those chemical elements are all structured. So when you do a plant, when you take a plant and you've improved its growth, you can extrapolate and say, oh, okay, that's also going to do something for humans. So just a real, again, basic type of product. These charges here in the United States, this particular gold-plated disc, is stainless steel with gold plating, and it runs for $115 on the website. We also sell a stainless steel version without the gold plating. It's not as good, but it's also, we try to also provide materials that can be affordable for all different types of levels of income.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we, all kind of started off. Do you have any questions at this point?
Mm-hmm. So in other words, it works for plants, humans, and animals. Is that correct?
Yes, very much
Mm-hmm.
so. So you can put it on the animals for pain. It's amazing. A lot of people have said that. I can't tell you how many people have said what we've done is we'll give the dog or the cat or their horse, and they'll give them an untreated water that has not been treated to the disc, and then a treated water, and they give them choices and put the dishes out or their buckets out or whatever it is, and the animals always go towards the treated water. It's amazing. So they know that they can sense the difference of the waters.
Yeah. And would that also, let's say I put that disc on my cat, would that help as well?
It depends on what if there's an injury or something like that. It's been reported that that would help a lot. And drinking the water and also having the actual physical disc on the animal, what they reported, especially for the elderly, for animals, is that they seem to, if there's been like an arthritic condition or just old age, they seem to be that it relieves a lot of that aging process, and will actually even reverse the product process. So that's also been reported in humans too. So
Yeah.
again, it's all about organization. And so recommend that anytime that you're drinking any type of liquid, then again, you just put it on the plate or the disc here for anywhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and just let it set on top of there. And again, then you have the water is wetter. It's going to now absorb better. A lot of people also then take the disc and they'll put it on top of the refrigerator, and then it will change all the liquids in the refrigerator because the disc also works through metal. So when you put it on metal, then the energies will travel through the metal. A lot of people also put the disc on their wash machine, and they can reduce the amount of soap that they use, because what is a soap? It just organizes water, and that's what this is doing also. So you can reduce your soap, you can reduce the chemicals you put in your pools. So there's many ways that you can experiment, and many ways that you can use just this, it seems like just a plain little coaster type of disc, but it has a lot of abilities, a lot of things that it can do.
Do we have any insights why this is working? Because I can, somebody might think, oh, this is quackery, and I'm not saying it does not work, but do we have any idea why it is working, what it is actually doing?
The best way that I can say is that, again, what's embedded into the disc itself and all Tri-Vortex products is this organizational type of energies. And it's very, very organized, very specific type of thing. And we talked about before the sympathetic resonance, which means is that this is vibrating this way and this is vibrating this way. And you put this close to it, and now everything is vibrating the same together. So again, the sympathetic type of resonance. The best way I also can try to explain it is that if you had a pool table and you wanted to move all of the balls around the table in an organized type of manner, well, the major thing is if you break them all apart and then they're all scattered, which is many ways what that represents is the light particles and the various things in the cells and that type of thing, and they're just scattered at a random type of thing. But once you put the balls of the pool table right back into the rack, and now those balls can go anywhere they want to, and very organized. And that's what also we have a membranes that are around the cells. And they are phosphorus based. This is something that was discovered in the 1990s. It's been very much buried and forgotten, but our sheaths around our cells, humans, animals, and plants, are basically made of phosphorus. And when they go disorganized, then we cannot get materials through to the cell. So if you have materials that are already organized, they're going to make it through that membrane much easier and much faster and much more thorough. So disorganization at a molecular level for liquids and foods and that type of thing, the cells have a certain type of molecular structure. The best way I always like to say this also is that if you had a Ferrari or some real high-end, like a Mercedes racing vehicle, would you put regular gasoline into it? No, that would be insane. And so the same thing is with our bodies, is that what I try to impress upon everybody is that we are a high performance Mercedes and Ferrari type of vehicle. That's who we are. And when we put all these inferior types of liquids into us, then that also brings down our performance dramatically. And what the Tri-Vortex does is to make liquids and solid foods so that it brings it up to our Ferrari type of, and Mercedes-Benz type of level.
Okay. Yesterday, I've read your newsletter, and because we are in the situation that we are in, and there was a very interesting connection between pulmonary diseases and dehydration. Can you
Mm.
elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, very much so, is that when we are dehydrated, understand the most vulnerable cells in our body are our lungs.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's why, again, always when any type of situation occurs, we've had these various health crises come over. And where does it always go first? It goes to the lungs. And whether it be AIDS or it be all the way up now to the latest challenges that we've had in the last year, it always is the lungs. And so when we are dehydrated, that is the very first thing that is impacted is the cells in the lungs. And what I always like to say about hydration is that we try to drink enough water so that when you look in the urine, at your urine afterwards in the toilet, it's just a slight yellow color. And so for Judith, it takes you a certain amount of level of water to drink, and for me, it's a different level. So rather than just saying you got to drink a liter or 3 liters or a gallon or whatever it is, so much a day,
Mm.
you drink more to what your custom is. You have your best gauge is the urine that is in your toilet. And if it's a dark yellow, you're dehydrated. If it's a light yellow, then your hydration is proper. If it's totally clear, then that's also not good either, unless you're a total vegan and don't drink any or don't eat any type of meat whatsoever. Then
Mm.
a clear urine is good. But for average persons who either eating fish or meat or anything else like that, is that to keep enough water in your body so that you keep a clear or just a slight yellow in your urine. And so that's extremely important, because then now those cells in the lungs are going to get as much proper hydration as possible. And when we're dehydrated, now you're vulnerable to so much for any types of other types of pathogens and other stresses and pollution and that type of thing.
Mhm. Um, what type of liquid would you recommend?
I am a very big believer in distilled water.
Mhm.
According to all the studies that we have done over the years, it's distilled is either the very best water or it's the very worst water. When we have done plant studies and we've done flowers and that type of thing, we get distilled water and we treat it with the disc. And the plants will grow really big, like some roses. You maybe cut some roses and they will go for 18 days and get huge and big. And then you take distilled water that's untreated and it will kill off the rose almost in a couple of days. Now, all the other waters in between that, whether it be alkaline or filtered or whatever else like that, we've done various types of things. So their variations are somewhere in between the distilled that's untreated and the distilled that is treated, and all the other waters are somewhere else in between there as far as when we go to the plant studies. So my thing is that our planet is nothing but a huge distillation system. What comes from the clouds and nurtures all of the plants is distilled water.
Mm.
But the distilled water is different from what comes out of a distiller. The nature-made distilled water is in a big vapor that goes up, and it's all the spiraling and vaporing. And so it's leaving all the contaminant. It's also structuring it in the spiral type of movement. And so then when it's now into this vapor and then it condenses and comes back into a raindrop, it is very, very organized. And that any farmer will tell you they would much prefer rainwater over any type of irrigation water. So that's extremely important, type of thing. So
Mhm.
I lost a little bit of my light. Am I still good through there?
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay. So again, is that I am a big believer in distilled water. If you buy your distilled water in plastic jugs, you need to pour it out, put it into glass or metal, and let it degas for 24 hours. Or you put it on the stove and you let it just bring it to a boil and then let it cool down. That gets all of the chemicals out of the plastic jar, or you just use a distiller. So the optimum water, as far as I'm concerned, and I drink it every day. I'm 68 years old, And I was playing full court basketball up until this whole crisis occurred. I have now not played any basketball because all the courts are closed.
Mm.
So again, as far as my own living example, and I've got all my family on it, the distilled water, and everybody's doing very, very well. And so I'm a big proponent of distilled water. And it's, as I said, when people say, "Oh, it's it takes minerals from your body," yes, they're 50% correct. When the water comes out of that distiller, it will absorb water. But as soon as it's now treated with the disc, it's like rainwater. The rainwater, when it comes down from the cloud, it drops on your car hood and it spreads out. And this is what's called low surface tension, or the water is wet. When it comes out of a distiller, it drops on your car hood and it breaks apart and beads up. And what it means is that it doesn't have any coherency. And what it does when it goes into your body, it's looking for structure. And when it doesn't have the structure, it's going to pull the structure from our bodies. So that's why it's very important that we have the distilled water structured so that when it comes in, it's going to just go right to hydration rather than trying to pull minerals and pull things out of our bodies to get the structure. It already has the structure. And that's a major thing then all that water, structured distilled water, is going to do nothing but pure hydration. It's going to pass right through that phosphorus-based membrane we were talking about earlier, passes right through it. And so that's why, again, is the distilled water works for plants, is because then it just passes right through and that membrane. Whereas if it has any other types of things in it other than distilled, it has maybe some calcium, or it has a little bit of this, a little bit of that, that impedes then the water passing through that membrane. So that's why, again, you want your water pure and you want your water structured. The whole thing about pH is really overblown. Understand that also distilled water is the only water that once you drink it, it has a neutral in its alkaline or acidic. It's neutral. As soon as it goes into your body, it will go to the alkaline level of your body. So Judith, your alkaline level is different from mine, and it's different from everybody else of the entire population.
Mm.
So everybody is different. But distilled water is the only water that once you drink it, it goes to your alkaline level. Whereas now they're selling this alkaline water, and you don't know if that alkaline water is basically matching up your own alkaline level in your own body. But distilled water, no problem. It goes right to that. It doesn't go acid. So is that when you're properly hydrated, you will not be in an acidic level. When you are improper, when you're improperly hydrated, you are dehydrated, then you're going to be acidic. But you cannot be acidic when you're properly hydrated. It's simply impossible. So those two things correlate. Your body will go into an acidic state if you're dehydrated. And if you're hydrated, it will always stay in the alkaline. And especially if you're drinking any type of distilled water, because again, that's going to go to your particular type of alkaline level and keep you hydrated. And remember, is also then keeping that urine at a slight yellow color, and off you go. And that's where, again, so many of the people now that are having all this lung stress, I can already tell you that probably 99% of the people that are now having lung stress, you can pretty much now count on it that they're also dehydrated.
Yeah, I can see that. So if I understand this correctly, you can buy the distilled water in a plastic bottle, you let the gases out, or you boil it up, and then
but you need to take it out of its plastic container and put it into glass or steel.
Yeah, and then you put it on that disc, and that will structure it.
Yes.
Okay.
And you will notice once you start drinking that water, your body will literally become addicted to it. It's just so refreshing. It's like something like the water that comes out of a spring or out of a river. It's just so refreshing and so nice and so good.
Mm. When I get up in the morning, the first thing that I do, I make a smoothie. But not one that is already bottled that I buy in the supermarket. I do it myself, usually with fruits or whatever is in season. So is that
Yeah, you
still?
could after you've mixed it up, just go ahead and set it on the disc.
Oh,
That way,
okay.
that way, if any of the fruits have lost their power and they're a little bit too ripe,
Yeah.
then it'll bring all of that energy back up into the fruits and everything else like that. 30 seconds to 2 minutes, something like that on the disc, and you've revived all of the fruits and you've structured all the entire liquid, and it's going to have a whole different type of interaction with your body as it digests.
Mm.
Because you can always tell something that especially if you're big wine drinkers, is that when you take the disc and again you take off a sample of your wine and then take across the room, and then take the entire bottle and put it on the disc, and now leave it there for 2 minutes. Now pour off another sample and then walk that across to where the other one is. You smell it, and most people can smell the difference. And then the next thing is you taste, and what you're looking for is an afterbite. And this is what I was also saying about the Ferrari type of thing, is that your body will already tell you if you have an afterbite to a drink or water or anything else like that. It's already telling you you're not matching up to my Ferrari standards, to the human body standards. That liquid is already inferior, and the body's going to try to bring it up to snuff. Now, people under the age of 30 can pretty much do that. After the age of 30, we lose this ability to actually change the water. That's what aging really happens with dehydration. You may drink a lot of water, and you think, well, but if it's not structured, it's just going to pass right through you. And so the whole thing is to keep it then structured. And that's what the disc does. And it's basically is that we're always then that taste, that little sour taste that you get for some wine or some liquid and that type of thing. It's the body's way of telling you we're going to have to work. This is not working. When it has this real smooth and nice silky taste, which is what that distilled water I was saying about earlier, is that becomes addictive, is because it's so smooth thing, and just immediately when it hits the tongue, it's absorbing. And when other liquids hit your tongue that are not structured, they have this kind of like afterbite taste type of thing. And so many ways, especially in Germany, that's where, again, if you're wanting to have your maximum out of your beer, then you want to do this. But then it also it really brings down, because that's what a lot of people think, is that they really want that big kick that they get from their drinks. But it's what that kick is telling you is that your body's going to have to really work to try to structure it. So the smoother the liquid that goes into your body, the easier it is for hydration. And the more tart taste type of thing, which beer does, and that does flatten the beer out. And so just understand that, but you're going to get far more better nutrient. All those beautiful nutrients that are in beer are now going to be absorbed and not going to be sloughed off by the body, because then that bitter taste is telling you, it's most of all that nutrition that's in the beer or the wine is simply going to end up in the toilet and not in your body.
I myself, I'm not a huge coffee drinker. In fact, last year in December, I had a brain surgery, and after that, I completely lost my taste for coffee. So, but I know there are a lot of people out there that cannot live, cannot live without their coffee. So would that help in any way as well?
Well, it's going to structure the coffee, but if you read my booklet called Super Hydrate and Charge Your Cells, I go into that. And oddly enough, I've had the last 3 people that have come to the Tri-Vortex Institute, they're all coffee drinkers. And like yourself, is that I would contend that one of the major contributing factors to your brain situation and your health condition was the consumption of the coffee. Coffee is one of the most dehydrating types of drinks, liquids that you can do. The only thing that's worse than dehydration, other than caffeine, is nicotine and smoking. So it really, really super dehydrates. Even just 1 or 2 ounces a day in the morning is that your body simply can't make up for it hydration type of wise. I've now been into this thing for now since 1988 and working with various types of people, and especially now men come to me and they'll have a prostate issue, prostate cancer, going to the bathroom quite often or something like that, but a prostate issue, and especially the cancer. And now what I've done is I just had another individual just come to me with prostate cancer. And what I do now is I no longer ask if they drink coffee. I simply say, how much coffee do you drink? Now, not all coffee drinkers have prostate problems, but 99.9% of the men who've approached me over the last 32 years, when they drink coffee or they have any type of prostate problem, especially prostate cancer, they are coffee drinkers. So again, not everybody that drinks it is going to have prostate cancer, but everybody that I've talked to that has prostate cancer, they're a coffee drinker. And so first thing is try to work on people and say, look, the coffee just simply isn't working for you, especially for men, because the prostate gland is the furthest down and furthest from the heart. And so it's going to be very vulnerable to dehydration. Same thing with, I believe, a lot of ovary problems, that type of thing, are also related to type of coffee drinking. And so, I'm just going to go right on record and say, I feel that the health problems you had and issues was directly related to the coffee.
That might be, although I never was a huge coffee drinker, but I also spent 3 decades flying as a flight attendant.
So you were oxygen deprived also. So going up in that pressure and the oxygen deprivation, plus the dehydration, plus the coffee. Yes.
But the good thing was the tumor was not malignant. So, but it had to be removed because I could no longer stand upright, was vomiting all the time. So yeah, it had to be done. And that was the initial thing that totally killed my appetite for coffee. Since I'm out of that hospital, it's almost a year now, I didn't have a sip of coffee.
Yeah, and just, again, I can't emphasize enough, and other people that are going through similar type of situations, and even if you're not, is that again, it's really interesting. The coffee industry will, they've pretty much, they'll put out all their type of literature and that type of thing. And there was a gentleman then, and they had all the benefits for coffee, and so they would list the benefit. And this other guy, then what he did is that he put it a line underneath every line that they had put for a benefit. He just simply said, "But it will kill you. But it will kill you. But it will kill you." so I thought that was extremely important, appropriate. So again, one of the major things, and I think it's also a major contributing factor to the health crisis that we've experienced here until 2020, is dehydration, and also the consumption of coffee, because again, that also makes the tissues in the lungs extremely vulnerable for any type of stress and shutdown and that type of thing. So again, we have to start taking responsibility for ourselves. And for our own bodies, I think that if any one thing that we have seen now come about is because in many ways hospitals are closing, doctors, I mean, the whole medical system is going, through this massive change. And what's very important right now is that each individual needs to start taking responsibility and take care of themselves.
Yeah. Since we talked so much about coffee, what about black tea?
Well, it's caffeine.
Okay.
The main thing is the caffeine. So that we can go to certain cola drinks. Coke has caffeine. Now chocolate is a whole different type of thing. If you get the unsweetened type of chocolate, there's, for some reason, for all the studies have said, and there's really no contraindications, but if you do a very, very moderate, small type of consumption of unsweetened type of chocolate, it does have a little bit of caffeine in it. It's extremely, extremely low, but there are certain chocolates that you can do. But now these other chocolate type of bars and chocolate cakes and things like that, again, all full of caffeine to the max. But there is certain types of things that that you can stay away from. The milk chocolate and the pure chocolate, and the cocoa is good. But other types of chocolates, anything that's got caffeine in it, needs to be avoided. And regretfully, and a lot of people are going to be really upset when you hear this one, is you need to stay away from green tea. Green tea also has caffeine in it.
Yeah. I know the green tea is not the wonderful thing that a lot of people think it is.
Yeah. So again, anything with type of caffeine, because there is something about the caffeine, the bean, the cocoa, the bean the caffeine is made from. It's just simply a diuretic. It is just really a major dehydrator for any type of biological life forms. And that's, it also goes for animals and plants and other plants and that type of thing. And that's why, again, there is very little vegetation that is around the coffee fields, because it just absorbs all the liquid. Yeah. It has a way of just sucking up lots and lots of water.
I've been just thinking this face mask that we have to wear now, or they expect us to. And but isn't that also dehydrating? And I mean, apart from the fact that bacteria is accumulating under it, and some people have eczema on their skin in the face, and you are breathing your own CO2, but isn't that also dehydrating?
Understand that there is no such thing as atmosphere as we know right now, just pure gases. We are still breathing a form of water.
Yeah.
The air is saturated with water, and then it condenses and makes a raindrop. But average air that we breathe has water in it. And so with that mask is that you are blocking and impeding the part of the air product, part of the water that's with the air product, or the air we breathe. And so, yes, it's very much so contributing factor to dehydration.
Yeah, no wonder that some people at the end of the day, let's say they are working in a supermarket, they go home and they have the impression their head is double the size all of a sudden, and have huge pressure and headaches. And
that's what I've been talking to a lot of the cashiers and the various people here. Fortunately, where I live here in California, I'm in a place called Riverside, California, and the county sheriff, the chief law enforcement officer of this region, is not enforcing any type of COVID type of rules. And so I go everywhere without any type of mask. Because I just simply, I know the negative downsides. And right now I feel the actual fear of that's going around is worse than the condition that the symptoms. I'd much rather have the symptoms of COVID than a lot of this fear, because the fear is going to be like lifelong. It's going to have such a psychological type of damaging effect for the persons. And if you go up on the Tri-Vortex website and you type in, if people can put this in because it's not on the website itself, it's trivortex.com/ capital T, capital O, capital Z, hyphen 2, as in the numerical 2, dot PDF. So TAS hyphen TAS hyphen 2 dot PDF. And it's one of my inventions that I just now came up with, and it's addressing that type of situation. And so if you're looking for something alternative for what's especially for respiratory type of situations, please check out that. It's a white paper, and it describes a device that I have called Trans-Ozone, or TAWS. So, again, what I feel is that many ways the fear is far, far worse than any of the symptoms. The symptoms can pretty much, for most times, can be reversed very easily. If you read that paper, that TAWS paper, it can be pretty much turned around very easily. But the fear is it's so difficult to turn around people's fears.
Yeah, exactly. That is how they control everybody, via fear. Not only in this situation, the fear of cancer, the fear of being homeless, the fear of losing my job, the fear, fear. That is, that's the program.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yes. And so that's where hopefully now is we need to start taking responsibilities for ourselves when it comes to health wise. And for those persons that are still going to probably try to depend upon the standard medical type of system, they're in for a very stressful time coming up. And so those persons that are prepared, those persons taking care of themselves, hydration, as I said, is that this Tri-Vortex disc. We also have another type of thing that I sell, and this is called the Tri-Vibes, and they're amulets. And inside of these amulets is every vitamin and nutrient known to mankind, and that goes into that treatment chamber that I was talking about earlier. And you actually can wear your vitamins and nutrients. And it sounds like science fiction, but it does work. So check out also on the Tri-Vortex website. It's called Tri-Vibes, and describes all of that. And it basically says, hey, you can actually wear your vitamins and nutrients. And so understand that we are the very first generation to actually grind up rocks, because that's what we've done, and swallow them, and we'll call them vitamins and nutrients. And we're the first generation to do that. And what impact does that have on kidneys and bladder and all various other types of things, putting tremendous amount of stress. And so that's one of the reasons why also I don't like taking vitamins and nutrients myself. But you can see here that I'm wearing this amulet, and it is called, again, the Tri-Vibes, and you simply wear it. And we've actually had some studies done where we had 10 people were given a placebo inside of here. We just put white flour, and 10 other people were given the real thing, where we put vitamins and nutrients inside. And then we did what's called SpectraCell blood tests for checking for nutrients and vitamins. Everybody had one at day 0. Everybody was tested again at day 40. The group that wore the real thing, they all shot up. They had either non-deficient and everybody was deficient. 20 of these people all had deficiencies, anywhere between 2 to 5 deficiencies. And the group that wore the real thing, they all shot up and either were non-deficient or right below it. And so the group that wore just the placebo, then they're pretty much stayed the same. There was one thing, though, that their vitamin Bs increased a little bit. and we couldn't figure it out what it was. Why would the vitamin B's just increase a little bit? Well, I started talking with a friend of mine, and he said, well, what did you use for a placebo inside? I said, I just used white flour. And he started laughing. Here in the United States, what they do, I don't know if they do it in Europe, they probably do, but it is now mandatory that all flours be vitamin B enriched.
Mm-hmm.
But it's done at homeopathic levels, and here it was showing up on our tests. So again, the Tri-Vibes, check that out again in the web. The thing we have gold plated, and we also have stainless steel. So it's stainless steel with gold plating, or regular stainless steel. The same thing also with the discs. And so this is also a combination. For many times what you can do is say, like, you have a joint problem, and you can put the Tri-Vibes on one side and put the disc on the other and wrap it up. And it's amazing what that will do for joints. The Tri-Vibes were created because, as I said, I was one of the pioneers of underwater video, and I was in the '84 Olympics. And I was working for the American Broadcasting Company, and they hired me to do the windsurfing yachting segments. And this catamaran came by and put his pontoon or his dagger board up. And I got a picture of this dagger board going right across the screen. And every time they went to commercial, they showed that segment, this 10 seconds that I did, my 10 seconds of fame. And so they showed this every time. And then the person who did that won the gold medal. And we came back and did it again. This time he put his dagger board up a little bit further. But what happened then is his other dagger board caught my knee, and I thought I had lost my leg. Mm. And so that's when there was now 20 years later, that was 1984 and 2004, I was having all sorts of problems in my right knee where I got hit by this catamaran. And I found out that between the bone and the cartilage there's a thing called hyaluronic acid. And so, but the problem being is that when you take hyaluronic acid orally, it's destroyed by the stomach. So what I did is I got a little tablet of hyaluronic acid and put it on my knee. Nothing happened. Then I put it in my treatment chamber for 24 hours, brought it back out, put it on my knee. And I was the very first person then to experience what is called light particle assimilation. Literally the light particles of that now enhanced and treated hyaluronic acid was going right into the area. And within probably 10 minutes, I had 90% of my pain gone in my knee, and it's never returned. And then I found out if I can move it and shift it up here, because every time I took it off, it didn't work. But now that I after about 20 days or so, then moved it up here, and as long as I wear this, then my knee is pretty much now with no pain, whatever. So that sounds like science fiction. Everything, it could sound like hocus pocus, and the what they call snake oil and that type of thing that's been called that, or the people that did that in the 1800s. And but we have a lot of science behind it, and a lot of people that have some really interesting stories. So check out those stories in the Tri-Vortex website under the thing called Tri-Vibes.
Yeah, I've read some testimonies, and I have to say I was very impressed. And honestly, when I look at what the pharmaceutical industry is selling, for instance, I have my cat. He has a problem with his thyroid gland. So he was eating, and he was getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So, but they do not heal anything. What they do, they turn you into a customer for life, Yes, fortunately, I can give it to him in his food because it doesn't have any smell, because he is one of those animals that refuse treatment. He does not like that.
He'll bite you when you try to get it done. Yeah.
And my veterinary, he said, yeah, there are animals that are like that. Try the liquid, maybe he will take it like that, and yes, that functions. But yeah, that would mean, or Yeah, it means I will have to give him this liquid for the rest of his life. I mean,
Mhm.
that is not healing. That is, you
Well, it'd be
know,
very interesting if we could put that into an amulet. And because that's what I've also done. A person approached me back to almost 10 years now.
mm,
Back in 2012, I was in Kentucky giving a lecture, and this lady approached me and she said, I just went into menopause and I'm on all of these chemicals that they've given me and this rub, they got a thing and I got this patch and I got this and they got that. And she goes, it cost me about $110 a month.
mm,
Said, do you think we can do? I said, well, as an experiment, what we can do is just send me everything that you're taking plus your patch. So I put that all inside with the vitamins and nutrients of a Tri-Vibes. And then what you're going to do then is you're going to wear your amulet and then take your hormones for 20 days. At the 20th day, then what you'll do is you'll start coming off your hormones and gradually do it. On the 30th day, you're no longer going to be taking any hormones and see how you feel. And that was now 2012. I talked to her about a year and a half ago, and she still has not bought any type of hormones.
mm.
That's still working. Now, for some other people, it may mean when we do that 30-day thing, some of their symptoms come back a little bit. So they go on half dose and go out another 10 days. So they do half dose and then gradually come off. And instead of the 30 days, they're coming off on 40 days, and then it works.
Mm.
So, yeah. So, again, this all for those persons that not know anything about subtle energy or things like that. It sounds, like crazy science fiction, but understand that we are basically at our molecular level light. We are light beings.
Exactly. Yeah. And I have to say, I think that in general, we are going into that direction, that we will see, maybe not next week and probably not even next year,
Mm-hmm.
but in the long run, that we will see a total overhaul, what we
Mm-hmm.
call medicine.
Yes.
I had Sherry Edwards as a guest. She is working with sound healing, and she
Mm-hmm.
explained the science behind that. And
There was a thing called Global Sciences back in the 1990s. He
mhm.
was one of the very first things in alternative history, alternative news, and alternative health. And way back in the 1990s, both Sherry and I were speakers at Global Sciences.
Oh,
So
okay.
so I've known her for almost 30 years.
Mm. Yeah. So I think that that is the direction that we are going. I know it doesn't look like it right now. Right now, it looks as if, yeah, we will end up in a dystopian technocracy with um, all types of technology in
Right.
our bodies that will ultimately hook us up to the AI. But
Mhm.
I think that plan will fail ultimately.
Well, if you'll do me a favor, would you send a postcard to Klaus Schwab
Yeah,
and tell him, no, it's not going to work. It's not
yeah.
going to happen.
Mm.
So, yeah. So, well, yeah, they have some big plans, and so we need to be aware of that.
Yeah, I've read that book, The Great Reset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's all laid out there.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, it was published this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about how long it takes to write a book, actually, I have a strong feeling they already had it in the desk and then just published it this year.
Yeah, and the question being, did he even write it?
Yeah,
He didn't write it, and it was probably done in the 1970s or 80s,
yeah.
and just that old. What their plans are, what they want to do now. They've adapted a little bit more as technology has changed a little
Mm.
bit. They have they've worked with that. So,
Yeah.
but one of the also too is as I was saying earlier, I don't know if you can see this or not. That's my picture here. I lost my light. But if you can see that, this is what it
Mhm.
was called, that TAWS.
Yeah.
And so you put this on the body, and it's what's called electroporation, where it opens up the cell. And that's what they're trying to also do with one of these vaccines,
Yeah.
The vaccine is a 3-needle type of thing, and it puts an electric current across the cell, opens up the sheath, and then they put in RNA. Well, this is somewhat doing the same thing, but we're doing it in a very positive type of manner. So when it's either put on a glass of water, we can ozonate, or it puts on the body, is that you are now causing electroporation, where this phosphorus-based sheath that I was saying that was on the cells of every body, is that they open up, and then now you can get all these, very, very good nutrients into the cell, and you can also then flush the cell out of what they call the exosomes.
Yeah.
And so, but this would have never been created had it not been for this whole crisis. I was approached by some medical doctors, and they said, "Can you get ozone in transcutaneously?" And I said I did it back in the 1990s. I had a product to do that, but I shelved it. And so I brought it off the shelf. I had old parts from the 90s, got with a very electronic engineer genius. And now we've come up with this particular type of device. This is the TAWS device. And again, doing the electroporation, but had not been for this crisis, this would have never been developed. So there are still some good things that are coming about it. Now we just have to stand up as individuals and also groups and saying, no, we're not going to go for this reset. No, we're not going to, do this new world order, type of thing. One of the meditations that I do is that I'm a vessel and a conduit for extraordinary and super powers, abilities, and talents to successfully protect, defend, and preserve all life forms on this flat earth plane. So we have true liberties, freedoms, and rights.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody, again, where we get something where we're going for a type of chant, where we're getting repetitive types of things, and it's gonna take an effort. This thing is, and there's gonna be no saviors. That's also too, is they kind of use this thing called Q organization.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started.
Yeah, and but again, it's all the problems they bring up are probably real, some of them, but the solutions are where everybody just kind of sits back and says, okay, well, our heroes will come and save us.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are no heroes. The hero is right now, go look in that mirror, and that's where the hero is. And that's where it's going to start, and that's where it's going to end, is that hero in every one of us.
Yeah. No savior coming.
Yeah. It's going to be us that will save ourselves. And that's what, for my thing, is that I am now, when I walk around in my community without a mask, and people come up and say, well, why don't you wear a mask? And all I ask them, I say, well, if you can present to me the science that proves that masks are effective against any type of pathogen, I will be the very first person to put on that mask. And what's very interesting, when you say that to them, their eyes glaze over, because science, because the news media has not presented them any type of science at all.
No.
Just fear, and it's like, they kind of like, buzz out with the science, and so, but I've also, many times I'll walk into like my post office, or I'll walk into various places, and as soon as I walk in without my mask, invariably somebody within the line will also take off their mask. And so, it's the freedom is contagious, and just again, we break the spell and release the fear. That's also one of the key things, is breaking that spell that we are now living under. And then with that, we're releasing the fear.
Yeah.
Fear released. Put it in past tense.
Yeah.
We break the spell, it's broken, and we fear released. It's already done. It's in the past.
Yeah, but when you talked about this expression, this facial expression, I had an experience yesterday. I went to a supermarket, and once in a while they have these announcements. During this challenging time of COVID-19, blah, 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 please wear your mask. Don't touch each other. Do not touch our workers here. And it goes on and on and on. And I was standing there. Then I said, yeah, and best you start shitting your pants out of fear. There was a lady standing in front of me, and although she had the mask on, I could see her eyes.
She's
And
laughing.
she looked at me as if I'm from Mars.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where, again, people are in their cars driving, and you can see their big eyeballs of fear driving the car, or walking outside, and they're wearing the mask. It doesn't, again, I feel that probably every education system, whether it be Europe or United States or Africa or Asia, India, all of our education systems should be sued and put in a lawsuit because they did not teach us the proper types of what really is science. For example, during the 1918 pandemic, where 30 million people, supposedly died, and it was in Europe and it was also in the United States and around the world. They had a study done in Boston where they took 50 Navy sailors that were in the brig and about ready to be discharged. And they said, we'll give you an honorable discharge if you participate in this study. They did another study just like it in Berkeley, California. So they had 100 people that they did this test with. They took 10 people that were dying from this pandemic, and they eventually then did die shortly after the study was done. What they did with both groups is they cross-contaminated. They did all different types of things where one person would go over and breathe right into their nose, into their mouth. They would take sputum. They would take all these body liquids and wipe them, eat them, inject them. I mean, they did every type of cross-contamination. And of the 50 people, there was 100 people on the study, not one of them got sick.
Yeah.
And so what it turns out to be now is it was now the final piece of the puzzle. And I put this, you saw my newsletter coming out, my little thing that I put out, is that they know also that one of the key things that in 1918 that everybody died from was, or not everybody, but was a contributing factor, was the masks, because the masks then instigated then the bacterial pneumonia. And there's another factor too, is that one thing that's been buried is that at that time in 1917, they came out with a vaccine. And they now spread this vaccine everywhere. And that's another thing that's been totally buried, is the vaccine they distributed. There was a small town in Pennsylvania here in the United States, and everybody in the town got one of these vaccine shots except for one family, and they were 10 people in this one family. And that the daughter then wrote a book about the experience because they were the only surviving people in their village. Is those who did not have the vaccine. Another thing that also too was a contributing factor was the poisonous fields in World War I. So all of these soldiers went back to their places in Europe and also in the United States, and they were contaminated with all of these chemicals. So you had the perfect storm happen in 1918. All these soldiers are returning with all these poisons and toxins. You had a vaccine and you had people wearing masks. And then you had now a disaster that was on your hand, but it had nothing to do with some sort of virus or some sort of, that type of thing. It didn't have anything to do with that. They were all things that could have been prevented. You could have prevented because you wouldn't have had the chemicals of World War I. It could be prevented because they weren't wearing masks, and it could be prevented because you didn't have the vaccine. They were all, those 30 million deaths were human instigated.
When you said that we have not been taught what actual science is, and I totally agree. And when I was in that hospital, they operated on me on Monday. I left the hospital on Friday. I had to go home because I knew I cannot get well here. And it is shocking how little they know about good nutrition, food in general. And they do not have any idea how energy works. Because if they did, they wouldn't build rectangular buildings.
Exactly. Yes. They do not. The feng shui is horrible.
Yeah, they would not put you into that Wi-Fi soup in the hospital.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
on it goes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
Well, it's just keep this in mind, though. This was back in the 1970s. I had worked as a medical cinematographer in a hospital, and this guy said, "Hey, we just got this film, and you got to come in and look at it." And he said, "It's just amazing." And they went down to South America, and they were there with some of the witch doctors and the medicine men and that type of thing. And they had somebody who was almost identical to your type of condition. They took a flint rock, sharpened it down, cut the tumor out, no gloves, no nothing. And they had some of their juices and that type of thing. And they showed this, it showed this entire brain surgery done with a crude sharpened rock, and got this major tumor out of the head, and no gloves, no masks, no anesthetics, nothing. And the person survived. They showed them afterwards. It was part of the post film. They showed them like a month later, and the scar was almost, you couldn't hardly even see the scar.
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot of things that we have to learn. Again, understand this too, is that if somebody can provide me a paper where they show scientifically that any kind of virus, whether it be HIV, Ebola, the current one, have they ever isolated a virus and truly identified it? It's never been. Also, another person that I do recommend, there's a person by the name of Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, MD. He is on YouTube. Absolutely excellent videos that he has there. And and again, he's saying so much truth, is that when it has too much truth, they take down his videos, so you know that he's saying something right. That's it. That's his validation, is when YouTube takes him down.
But they also took a lot of channels down that were Q decoders and Q talkers. So it's not always.
Well, but I don't think they should do that either, because I think that that freedom of speech. I'm American, and
I know.
We have our Bill of Rights and everything, and our Constitution.
I'm not saying I'm happy that they did that. The only thing that I meant is, it's not always.
Both sides. Yeah, it's both ways. Yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But I understand, it's like over here we have our cable television. Now my cable television was costing me $225 a month with the television, phone, and various all the services that come with it, internet, the whole thing. And starting out in about 5 months ago, they dropped the rates. Now I'm paying like $48 a month. So what this means is they really don't want anybody dropping cable or dropping the thing, because they really want people watching those TV for that fear.
I haven't had a TV set for many years. I don't miss it. I wouldn't even know what to do with it, because
Fantastic.
I always found that there's so much nonsense on there.
Yeah.
Going back to that disc, you said you have one with stainless steel, and this one is the gold plated, yeah?
Yes.
And you mentioned, if I remember correctly, that the gold-plated is working a little bit more effectively.
Yeah,
Is
anything with
that because of the gold, or why is that?
yeah, it's gold plated, and anything with gold. For some reason, there's three things: there's silk, and gold, and lasers take on the treatment chamber that I've created the very best. Now, the other things take it on very, very well also, but those three things, items, of course, gold, anything that's gold plated or anything that is, silk and lasers and that type of thing is more expensive. And so that's why I still try to provide something that will be it for all economic levels. So that's why I still offer the stainless steel. Like this is $115, and the stainless steel is $75. So, but again, it costs me more money to have the gold plating put on, and that's what you're paying for, is that expense.
Well, going back to bad science, and if we look at people like Fauci, and yeah, I mean, Bill Gates is not even a scientist, and he's not a doctor. Why he is yapping all the time, I don't know. And here in Germany, we have Christian Drosten, and the impacts for him are coming hard and fast, because it seems that his dissertation for his PhD is not even existing. Yeah, yeah. And so, but do you think it is only that these people are flat out evil, or is there a huge amount of ignorance going on?
First off, you need to look at the education. Who educated Fauci? Who educated? I don't know the person you mentioned there in Germany, but I can pretty much almost guarantee you he has the same education as Fauci. It's the same education as Joe Biden, our presidential candidate. The same one as Donald Trump. The same one for well, not so much Hitler, but definitely Stalin, Mao, Castro. Who educated them, and who has an agenda, and they've already published this agenda many, many times over centuries now. And who's the driving force? Same thing also with Klaus Schwab. Who educated him? And from everything I understand, he has a lot of connections too. And there's one group, and I recommend that everybody take the time to go ahead and investigate. And the true group that's all behind all of this, and it's a sound really crazy, and that's the Jesuits.
Yeah.
So their major goal is to, and they put it right in their oath, is that they want to move the seat of the Catholic Church from Rome to Jerusalem, and that's when then they can now have their one world order in Jerusalem. And that's what all of this maneuvering, all of these things are about, is to have this one world government located in Jerusalem. Yeah. And but check it out. Don't take my word for it. Do not, don't take that as gospel. You do your own research, do your own, and it's right there. There's so many good researchers out there right now. Some of them are being censored, but and they're taken off, but there are still a lot of good people out there that you can get a lot of information about what's truly behind all of this New World Order, the Great Reset, the United Nations Agenda 2030, and all of the Gates type of intentions are all, you can look it up, of who is really the driving force behind all of it if you just take the time.
Yeah. I recently had Gary Wayne on. He is a Christian contrarian, and in the Christian tradition, the Antichrist figure, he will be crowned in Jerusalem. And recently, 2 African countries have been bullied by the US. Kenya has been told, support and acknowledge Israel publicly, or forget about the free trade agreement, a free trade agreement. And Sudan has been told, yeah, well, if you acknowledge Israel and you support them publicly, then we will wipe you off this terrorist list, that you are a terrorist state.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's and again, looking at the history, the background of where Israel came from and how it did, there's a lot more out there, and so you know, it one of the things that over the last 2-3 years is that there is just so many things about our reality that is totally false. It is wrong. Our history is wrong. How our bodies function and how they tell us is totally wrong. I mean, there is just one lie after another. We just live in this massive type of fraud and delusion that has been created. And just understand that.
Yeah. The other day, I saw a video what was going on in front of the White House after election night. And as we know, there is still no so-called outcome. And I don't have a dog in that race. I think that which clown is going to sit there, it doesn't really matter. But what I found puzzling is that I see not a lot of unified pushback in the United States against this COVID madness. Here in Germany, we had huge protests with 2 million people in the streets. Another one will be in Leipzig this weekend, and it's very well organized. There are lawyers standing up, doctors standing up, and. So, and I thought to myself, there was a group of people clobbering another individual because that individual voted, obviously, for a clown that they do not approve of.
What I think was happened is, why is Germany so active and independent and the United States so passive? I think it goes back to the end of World War II.
Okay.
Because basically Germany got wiped out. Our parents, they were now just coming up to they were in their 20s or teens or something like that. And for Germany, it was like just the slate got it clean.
Yeah.
Basically, you had to start all over again. In the United States, we just slid. We went from the suburbs exploded, and you went into you weren't in the survival of the fittest. You weren't things where you really had to go out and do things. And I think that if we look at it, my generation, I'm 68, and so I was born in 52. So that whole between 1945 through 1965 and even beyond that, but that group of Americans, we just slid right into the suburbs. We slid right into TV, all of their mass media, the music industry, that type of thing. And for Germany, it was different. The parents just literally had to start over. There was a lot more independence. And so I think it was out of defeat for Germany was actually freedom. And out of winning, we put ourselves into slavery here in the United States. So I in many ways, and when I see that, I'm here, I have all this German heritage and everything else like that, and I'm just in ways so frustrated and ashamed of why we're not seeing that. But again, there was this more survival type of thing that occurred in my generation in Germany than it was here in the United States. And I think that's the difference. And again, you exemplify that by saying also you don't have a TV. Well, I mean, I do not know anyone here in the United States that does not have a TV. Not one person.
Yeah.
So that's that. I'm sure there's a lot more in Germany than there is, not watching the media as there is in the United States. It's almost, maybe 1 in every 10 million don't have a TV or don't watch. Now, I have changed my habits. I don't watch anywhere near what I used to, and that was already happening before the whole thing happened, started up in March. it was already a year and a half before that I just limited myself to just very, very narrow band of things that I watched. I don't watch any of the violent movies. I don't do, there's a lot of things that I took out. I took out sports. I took out a lot of stuff. So when everything kind of went, smaller, I was already small there before. And so, but it's going to be, again, interesting. We're living in very, very interesting times right now. And so many people are asleep with their masks on as all this is occurring, and it's just really sad.
Yeah, when I saw that video, a couple of people beating up another individual, I thought to myself, no, there is no mass awakening. I'm very sorry. And it is not popular to say that, but imagine you could channel that energy into.
Okay, what video are you referring to?
Yeah, there were unrest in front of the White House, and a couple of people were pushing a guy against the word slips my mind. Not against the wall, a fence.
Yeah.
And and they started hitting him. After a while, he was able to escape. But
was this like a Biden person beating up on or reverse, or was the political party?
Make that out who was who, but obviously what the group that was trying, not only trying, which was hitting him, they didn't like what he was voting for.
That's where, again, because of the ignorance here, now you're going to see, you had now, I just can't imagine I'm 68 and I played full court basketball up until, as I said, but if I was in my 20s and 30s and I was playing basketball all the time, and now that there's no sports, everything has been shut down. They have some professional sports, but as far as if you were doing softball or baseball or hockey or some other type of sport, there's basically nothing that you can do right now. You can't go out and bowl, you can do nothing. And so these people are all pent up in their houses with all this energy. How frustrating that could be.
Yeah. Would you say that having a mental focus, an image in our mind of the world that we would like to see and nourish that image, that is also important during these times?
To me, would be love, awareness, courage, and action. Laka and wisdom. Love, awareness, courage, action, and wisdom. All those words, because they have to dovetail in the other. But starting off first with love, loving oneself, loving others unconditionally, being aware of truly of how everything is all being manipulated, courage to stand up to it, and taking action of some sort, even if it means don't wear your mask or whatever it is, or how can you take action? And then also with all of that comes of the wisdom to handle all of that.
Yeah. But you would say that is important to have a mental image that instead of being fed mental images.
Right. Well, to me, would be the first thing is unconditional love of oneself and others. So if there'd be the one word would be love.
Yeah.
And then take it from there.
Yeah. So if somebody is a total newbie now to Tri-Vortex and the subtle energy tools, would you say that this disc would be a good entry point?
Yes, very much so. So if you want to start off, I have many other type of products. I have another one called the Nano Oxygen Accelerator. You can buy that. I use it here in my center here. I have another one called the Tri-Intrasound, and it again puts off sound waves. And then also too is I have another one called the Tri-Infrared,
Yeah.
Tri-Infrared,
Okay.
Uh, and so it's using infrared wavelengths.
Mm.
And what is behind here is also a pouch of Tri-Vibes is inside. So the light beams are also carrying vitamins and nutrients. So have various other types of things that you can look at and go ahead and get a read on them. There is also a very good video that's on the home page of the Tri-Vortex website, and it was a local TV station here that did a feature on me, and also the Tri-Vortex Institute. At the bottom of the homepage, I have a little 5-minute video on water. And so, again, a lot of things we've already discussed, but I put it in a two-way video format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, wonderful. I love uh, things like that that really, push forward and leave a lot of nonsense behind. I'm all for that. And I'm very open to these things. And I have to say, it's very reasonable, the prices. I mean, even, let's say I buy the stainless steel disc, and even if it does not work, and it is not cutting my throat.
Well, but it's also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee that comes with it.
Exactly. Plus, if I, think about what you can pay for medicine that you have to take for the rest of your life. I mean,
Yes.
that will add up sometimes $10,000s.
Well, I've been doing this for 15 years, and as I said,
Mm.
I have a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
I've only given one person back that has ever requested their money back, and that's because they had a financial situation that was an emergency. But when they bought it, between the time they bought it and received it, I returned all of their money. I've never had, as far as a legitimate person coming to me and say, this doesn't work, I want my money back, but I'm ready, prepared to do it. And so you can hopefully say you can be the first in your neighborhood, but no, again, is that um, I feel very confident of saying that uh, there's no cures, but there's definitely all the products, all the items that I do, all the services. It improves the quality of life.
Mm. Yeah. And I would say it gives the body tools to heal itself.
Yes.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So do you have some final words for us, some advice, some...
Again, as I reemphasize again, it's time now for everybody to start taking responsibility for your own health and your well-being, and also that of your family. And we are now under some really stressful times because everything is changing. Something we didn't initiate, somebody else is. And there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of this. But the most important thing, is now take responsibility for you and your family. And Tri-Vortex will always be there with various types of items. I'm always adding to my inventions. I always check into the website for new things. And again, there's other inventors and other researchers that are also doing the same things. And we have a really exciting type of time here in front of us right now.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I really had a wonderful time. I enjoyed this chat with you very much. And I'm really happy that there are people out there that are doing this, pushing forward, and that we can already see a new type of medicine, shaping up.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time and to listen to everything. And I just feel so honored that you have given me your time. I come back on. And so it really means a whole lot to me. And also, I think also to your community, that you have taken the time to sit down and listen, ask some very probing type of questions, and still keep an open heart and an open mind.
Okay, thank you. So that was it, guys. guys, Night Flight for today with the wonderful Brian David Andersen and his technology. And I have to say, take good care of yourself, enjoy your life, stay sound out there, and stay safe from tyranny. Until next time, bye-bye.